We're gonna, to take a look a little bit further down the schedule here. Check in on a few of those future opponents, like we had mentioned here, John. And let's start with USC. We said they dropped out of the rankings here. Where do they really rank here? Like, how great of a win would that be for Oregon by the time they come here? In what is that week 10?
It's 11. It's the
11.
last one before Washington. They go to Washington at the end of the season. It's the 11th game. I don't know about the weeks because so I guess it's like week 13 or something because you got a couple of buys in there. I still think that's the biggest game on Oregon's schedule left. The fact that it's at home is definitely an advantage for Oregon. I think the Washington game, it will be a solid test of a hard road environment. Same thing with Iowa. And we'll talk about those teams as well, but I think USC is still one of the better teams. Mayava has been very good at quarterback. They have a Mekhi Lemon has been one of the best receivers in the country and is a guy who not necessarily physically dominant like a guy like Surratt was against Oregon's corners, but just gets open all the time and is such a heady receiver and obviously very good after the catch. Going to definitely challenge this team defensively. USC has been better on defense than they have been in other years under Lincoln Riley, but it's still not to a level that I think it's too much of a test for Oregon. So that's where I'm looking as I look through the rest of the schedule. But again, now they're unranked. You still don't even have a ranked team on this entire schedule, or a team that's ranked at the moment on this entire schedule, except Indiana, and that's a loss now.
Yeah, and then you start looking at what didn't go well for USC in this Notre Dame game, and the big thing is that Jeremiah Love goes 24 for 228 and a touchdown, and that will lose you a game any day. And you start looking at Oregon's running backs and you say, yes, there are talented guys in this room. Are they Jeremiah Love level? I don't know. But this is certainly a game where Oregon really can't look to flex. What's become really strong, especially running back game by committee, like against the Trojans defense that against good running backs really can't stand up when you start looking at stuff about athlete to athlete there.
I wouldn't mind to see even though Whittington continue to take on more of a little bit more of a running back one role. Doesn't need to be a bell cow guy, but more where like Jordan James and Bucky Irving were for Dan Lanning's teams, where they're about like 15 or so touches a game on the ground. I thought Noah Whittington was awesome in that game, and he's a guy that sometimes you just need a little bit of that veteran experience that they've seen more outside zone plays than Jordan Davison or De'Aaron Hill have. The more you're on the field, the more you've seen, the more you're able to read and react in real time. And I think Noah Whittington has done really good in that, and that's how he's able to make that extra cut to get those bursts into the second level and create those huge plays. So I wouldn't mind continuing to see. Jaden LeBar was out in that game, so things are continuing to shuffle in the running back rotation, it seems. But I wouldn't mind seeing Whittington become really that 1A guy, and then Davison and Hill find their roles as the short yardage, the damage, and another explosive option in Hill.
Yeah, you remember the last time USC came to Autzen, the last time the Ducks actually faced the Trojans, it was really a game defined by a couple of explosive plays. You had a long Troy Franklin touchdown, a long Tez Johnson touchdown, and that really feels like it could be how this game is decided too. Like, who gets the 70-yard score to really get a quick touchdown?
Because Mayava and Lemon are going to test you. Those guys are legit one of the best quarterback receiver combos in the country, and they're guys that threaten downfield and really to all levels of the field, but they will threaten you downfield. They'll test your ability to communicate in the secondary. So that's probably the matchup. If you talk individual player this rest this year, one of the ones I'm most excited to see against Oregon.
Well, you go from a phenomenal offense and a defense that you have some questions about to one that's almost the opposite. You look at Iowa, unranked as well, of course, faces Minnesota before the bye week, and is one of those teams that has a bye week before facing the Ducks. The Ducks will also come off a bye before that game against the Hawkeyes. This is a team, of course, that shut out Wisconsin. We already mentioned that earlier here. Played Iowa State close this year, but maybe doesn't feel like it's at the level that we've seen Iowa teams that really have given some really top level Big Ten teams issues in past years. It doesn't feel like it quite is at that level.
No, their defense isn't the top tier defense that they've had at certain points, but it's still a very good unit, and they're a little bit more balanced this year. Now I cannot remember the name of their quarterback because it was one that I was struggling to pronounce earlier when I was doing research.
Mark Gronkowski.
Yes. Gronowski. He had a good game in that Penn State game, and they were using him on the ground a lot. So I think that's going to be something that's interesting to see. Because you're going to face quarterbacks, especially in the playoffs, quarterbacks who have that dual threat ability, and are going to be able to test you with their legs. So I think that's an interesting matchup there for sure. Because that's what they did really well against that Penn State team. I just think the biggest thing about that matchup is the fact that it is a November game in Iowa, in a place that's going to be cold and in traditional Big Ten territory. You looked at the game last year at Wisconsin, where they really struggled in a situation like that. I looked to that to kind of have an answer to that game to prove that it's not going to be another late season struggle.
Absolutely, and the Ducks really aren't, aside from potentially a first round game if they were going to head somewhere. Would be playing, in domes or in Seattle the rest of the year, or obviously at Autzen Stadium. That probably will be the most weather tested game that the Ducks necessarily have, on the rest of this home and away schedule here. That almost feels like one where, you look at that Wisconsin game, you say, let's put ourselves in an uncomfortable situation. Maybe it is a closer game, but this is a great opportunity, not given the quality of teams to test ourselves. A difficult place to play might be the next best option.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about difficult place to play and great quarterback and receiver duos, and the Ducks close this year out. Of course, with a trip to Seattle, face the Washington Huskies and the greatest offensive trio in college football, DeMond Williams Jr., Denzel Boston, and Jonah Coleman here. Washington loses this weekend 24-7 to Michigan. Williams throws 3 picks. They do play a ranked opponent right now, number 23 Illinois next week. Then Wisconsin, Purdue, and UCLA before they welcome the Ducks into the greatest setting. Like last year, these Huskies really didn't end up being a test for the Ducks. And almost in a good way. You remember the 10 sacks. You remember just how phenomenal the Ducks played in that game. Is this just shaping up to be the same thing?
No, I don't think so. I think this Washington team is still a good team. They went in, I think DeMond Williams got a little flustered at a big game, 3 picks for him, and he was under pressure throughout that one from the Michigan defense. He hasn't gone into a lot of situations like that in the big house. When you look at a redshirt freshman quarterback, I think this Illinois game is going to be really interesting to see for Washington this weekend, because you look at what the rest of their schedule is after that, and it's Wisconsin, Purdue, UCLA at this point has been on a roll a little bit, so they're not ranked. Be an interesting game for Washington towards the end of the year there. But I think that Illinois game is really a good test for them, because it feels like going at Michigan, that's a game you definitely had a chance to win, but Michigan is still a good team. They're now ranked 25th. And then obviously their other loss on Washington's schedule is at home against Ohio State in a game that was close-ish in the first half before Ohio State really did kind of show a little bit of levels in the second half. But if you're going to get a big win the rest of the year, Oregon game aside, obviously that would be the biggest win for Washington the rest of the way. This is the chance at home against a ranked team in Illinois. I think Washington has a chance to win. Definitely has a chance to win this game, and this is an opportunity for DeMond Williams to bounce back and show that, hey, I can be a winning quarterback, and we are going to test teams like Oregon later on this year.
Yeah, and I remember leaving that Washington game last year thinking, man, DeMond Williams is going to be a really, really phenomenal player.
Yeah,
like he was just running for his life here, and still, he looked really great. Like Denzel Boston made a couple unbelievable catches in this game. The running game obviously didn't get off the ground, but we know just how good those guys can be. We talked about how good Maeva and Lemon are. Where do these guys stack up kind of in the grand scheme of college football?
Yeah, that's another test there. DeMond Williams, another guy really good with his legs, and a guy who can get out of the pocket and create plays off structure. And then Boston is another guy who's just big and talented. Not many guys move like the way he does at 6'4". There's a reason they have him as a punt returner, despite him being a 6'4" guy who can win jump balls on the outside. So you got some good opportunities to face strong receivers here down the stretch with Boston and Lemon in those last couple of weeks. So I think that's exciting for these Oregon corners. And we know guys like Brandon Finney, they're excited for matchups where they're going to get tested by some of the best receivers in the country.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's really what I want to hammer home with this segment is that, yes, it's very possible the Ducks won't face another ranked team, depending on what this USC team ends up being by the time we get to week 13. But what's important, not necessarily from a ranking standpoint, but just from a like where really does Oregon stand standpoint is that everything that, you know, we criticize them for in the Indiana game, you know, not being able to play the run, they're going to play a good run defense kind of in that Iowa team. You know, not being able to stop a big wide receiver. They play Denzel Boston. There will be opportunities to see where the Ducks stand, especially later in this year, about what this team really looks like heading into a very important time where they will be playing, you know, ranked teams, top 12 teams.
Yeah, you just kind of got to find the it's about finding those like small areas to make improvements where it's not, you don't have that opportunity to test yourself as a whole necessarily, but it's about finding small areas where you can say, hey, I did this better today. I did this better in that game. My pad level was better. I was better in my releases. I was better in press at the line of scrimmage. You got to find those small areas to make improvements throughout the rest of the year so that you can feel like when you are going to be tested overall and they're going to challenge you in multiple ways, you'll be solid with those things and be prepared for those teams you're going to face in December and January.